guys, welcome back to our channel. So for today's video we're going to be talking through our 3 tips to overcome emotional eating. So a few weeks back we did a video about the root causes of food cravings, and one of those was emotional eating. So we were asking you guys if you wanted a video that went into a bit more depth about emotional eating, and a few of you guys said you would, so here it is.
So before we get into the 3 tips to overcome emotional eating, we wanted to just have a chat about, firstly, what emotional eating is and what we're referring to as emotional eating in this video, and then 2, why it can be a problem. So when we talk about emotional eating, we're not referring to an actual eating disorder or binge eating. We're talking more about emotional eating as eating triggered by our emotions rather than our actual physical hunger. So emotional eating is a very common thing. I think everyone does it, we're emotional beings. However, it's really a scale. A lot of us will eat, from emotions of boredom, but then for others it becomes a pattern. A habit that masks a lot of different emotions. So you could be on the side of the scale where you're often grazing in the cupboard when you're just a bit bored, or it could be more complex emotions that you're often really avoiding with food.
So yeah, there's that basic idea that you're eating to cover up an emotion that you don't want to feel. So that could be any kind of emotion. That could be, boredom or restlessness or anxiety or anger or sadness. There's so many different emotions that you could be eating to avoid.
And we often refer to this as emotional buffering. So if you read it in our blog a lot or hear us refer to it in our videos, that's what we're talking about. It's that buffering from the feeling. So instead of really sitting with how I'm feeling about a situation, I just go to the pantry and try not to think about it.
Just distract yourself with food.
And you can buffer with things other than food. Obviously, there's many things that we can do to distract ourselves from how we really feel and not validate our feelings, but today we're obviously talking about food, which is one of the really big ones.
So we're also going to talk a bit about what the problems are with emotional eating. So even in the health community, you might be eating a really healthy diet, but if you're, binging on nuts or something like that, it's going to be overtaxing your digestive system. So a lot of people get bloating, it's just uncomfortable.
Yeah, because I think emotional eating really has that connotation of it being like going to the big bowl of ice cream or salty chips, and it definitely can be those really high calorie dense foods that really light up your brain with a bit of happy chemicals. But it can also really apply to healthy foods. You can just be overeating on nuts, paleo snacks, organic foods, but it's not because you're hungry, it's just because you're trying to buffer from your emotions. So the other thing about emotional eating is that even though you get to escape the emotion in that moment by masking it with food, at the end of the day the emotion of, say, sadness or boredom may still be there, except now you've also overeaten, so you have the discomfort of the repercussions of that. So whenever you buffer with something rather than look for the root cause and deal with that, you end up generally making more problems for yourself.
Because overeating is rarely the solution to the original problem. We might jump into our tips then. Okay, so our first tip for overcoming emotional eating is to become aware of your thoughts. So this is really important because our thoughts create our feelings and our feelings create our actions. So when you take a look at your life, every result that you see, there was a thought that
triggered a feeling and then got you either inspired to take action or deflated and not take action, I guess.
So when it comes to emotional eating, when you are eating and you feel full, number one, you want to stop and say, well, am I hungry right now, when you go to eat the food? And then number 2, you want to ask yourself, well, what am I thinking or feeling right now? So you might find, oh, I feel like my shoulders are up, I feel really tense and stressed. Or maybe you're feeling sad, or, it could be anything. Bored is a really common one. And one way that you can really get in touch with your thoughts is through journaling. So if you keep a food journal, you could say, at this time I ate this, and what was I thinking, and what was I feeling at this time.
So our second tip for overcoming emotional eating is to lean into the discomfort and start managing your mind. So what we mean by leaning into the discomfort means that we're going to start actually feeling what it's like to not resist emotions. So to just sit with it and know that it's not going to harm you. It's just something that you have to sit through and stop resisting, because we often hear the quote, "What we resist persists." Which is completely true. The more energy we put into resisting something in our life, oftentimes the more it comes into our life. So the more we avoid boredom or sadness, the more it can just manifest more in our life.
So when we practice feeling an emotion, it's a little bit like meditation. So you're just going to sit back and let the feeling run its course without trying to resist or avoid it, and you're kind of being more that watcher that we talked about in our meditation video, which I guess we'll link below. So really watching the thought also allows us to put some space between ourselves and the thought, rather than being very attached to it and feeling
by it. Yeah.
So at this point we're kind of sitting with the feeling and really experiencing it, and this is also a good time to start getting curious about that feeling. So you want to really explore the thought process that is behind that. So what can that feeling really tell you about yourself? When we start, looking into those thoughts that we're trying to buffer against, we can realize a few harsh truths maybe about ourselves that you don't really want to confront. So, this could be so many things. Maybe you don't like your job, and that's something that's it seems big and scary and you don't want to go there. But by actually facing that and dealing with that head on, rather than trying to escape it, you've then stepped more into your authentic self, because now you're actually doing what your heart wants you to do.
You're actually taking steps towards what you want to do rather than masking it or like putting temporary pleasures in place so that you don't feel that pain of being in a place that isn't really right for you. And that could be a relationship or a place that you're living, or really anything. It could be something much smaller than that too, but oftentimes it can be a big thing, like something you're not satisfied with. Maybe you're in the wrong degree or anything.
Yeah. Or it could be something small. Maybe you realise that you're working on a project or something and you just feel really restless, and that's why you're eating. And like maybe all you need to do is go out and go for a walk. Maybe your body just wants to go for a walk. That could be all. But the point of it, is really to get down to that root cause and figure out why you're trying to buffer against it.
This step is about really repairing that connection that you have between your physical hunger and your mind. So learning to reconnect with your physical hunger, basically. So the hunger scale is one method that is quite popular to use for this. So this is when you go to eat, you think about how hungry you are on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being I'm really, really hungry and 1 being I'm full, like I'm not hungry at all. So ideally you would like to ask yourself, where do I think I sit on the scale? And if it's sort of above a 7, it's probably means that you're actually physically hungry and that it's time to have something to eat, and it's fine. If it's much lower than that, you know that it's probably an emotional response and that you're bored eating or something like that. And of course, if you've followed our channel for any length of time, you know that we follow a really ancestral and whole foods approach to diet. And we really recommend that if you're going to use a hunger scale approach, that you're going to have to feed your body really wholesome and natural and nutrient-dense foods. The actual scale of hunger is going to be distorted the more we eat processed foods and other foods that mess with our insulin and blood sugar levels. And our overall metabolism and how it works. So as long as you're eating good, real foods, your hunger scale should be working for you and you can learn how to reconnect with it.
So the second half of this tip was about mindful eating. So when you are eating, make sure that you're really experiencing the food that you're eating. What does it taste like? What is the texture? Paying attention to the color and, all of those things. So you're not just, woofing it down, because sometimes that's what we do when we are like emotional eating, where
you don't even enjoy the food.
No, you're just scoffing down that chocolate bar and you didn't even get to enjoy it.
I recommend, because I'm the slowest eater in town, that you taste a little bit of everything together and really experience the the textures, if something's crunchy or something's got a nice sauce on it, that you put it on each forkful. It really slows down the meal and makes you really appreciate every bite. So, you know, it's not about feeling like you can't, you know, experience and love food. It's that you actually enjoy it when you have it and you eat when you're hungry.
Okay guys, so that wraps up our 3 tips to overcome emotional eating. So we hope you guys enjoyed this video and that you found it helpful. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if you have any questions at all, don't forget to leave us a comment below. We will try and respond as quickly as possible.
And other than that, I think we'll see you in our next video.
Bye guys.
Bye. So we're prepping for dinner now. We're going to make a nice potato salad that is gluten and dairy free, and then we're going to have that with some organic lamb and garlic sausages. So in front of me here I have all the things to make our potato salad.